Good morning, everyone. Sorry, it's soon to be afternoon. It's me, Kenneth Gamble. I'll be your guide for the session at today's live at the waterhole slot. I'm starting off here at Old Donyo Lodge. Plenty of zebras, a magnificent, beautiful elephant bull. Also sharing the space, for once looking maybe a bit intimidated or outnumbered by the zebras. But certainly a great start to the show. Just a reminder, the show is live and interactive as always. So please send through your questions through the various channels, and it's always wonderful to interact and engage with some of the topics. Gavin mentioning how it's nice to start with a standoff. Certainly is nice to have a bit of action off the bat. It's quite striking how the habitat is changing so rapidly now in Kenya. Of course, north of there, or where they are, north of the equator or near the equator, very stark contrast in the seasons to us in southern Africa at the moment. And we can definitely see this change being echoed in not only the drier vegetation, but the magnitude of animals we're seeing at the waterhole during a lot of the sessions when we're in Kenya or Tanzania. It says too there's not much water out in the bush, and the animals are being drawn to what little water sources are available. I think that's also always quite an interesting phenomenon, having polar opposites of the sea, or excuse the pun, but opposites of the seasons. While one half of the globe experiences summer, the other half is experiencing frigid and very cold weather. We're going to head over to Tau now. We'll be back in a flash. Also quite a bit of action today here at Tau. Got the beautiful little springbok sliding through in the back there. It's always a nice little treat to see them here. Don't necessarily see them too often. And this would be a good example of an animal that is quite well adapted to going without water. They live in quite arid areas of southern Africa. Of course, they definitely will take the opportunity to drink when it is presented, but truly stunning animals. Also one of the best rugby playing animals in the world. Also quite a nice opportunity to see the difference between a springbok and an impala. I think many first time visitors to South Africa get the two confused, but you can see that stark difference quite easily when they're standing next to each other. I think the biggest giveaway, of course, is the white belly of the springbok. Size wise it's also much smaller, but it is nice when you've got those two animals next to each other to illustrate the differences. I think sometimes for some people it's hard to visualize the two, so it's nice when you get to see them. Also some baboons for once. Can't actually remember noticing baboons at Tau. It's quite a rare occurrence, but also have a feeling they probably spend a great majority of their time terrorizing the lodge here. You can see them foraging quite happily through the grass, etc., looking for forbs or tubers, maybe even some seeds and flowers. That will be part of their diet. Lena, you'd like to know, why does the waterbuck have that bold white ring around its rump? So the thinking behind it, it's obviously a visual signal, and when they run, that bright white ring flashes and helps other waterbuck keep track of each other, especially in tall grass or near water where visibility might be limited. It also acts as a bit of a follow me marker for calves, and can potentially confuse predators by maybe distracting them with those bold markings. But one thing I've always myself wondered about, so the southern African waterbuck is known for having that white ring on its rump, whereas the waterbuck subspecies north or in more north of the equator, for example, that white rump is or that white ring is not present on their rump. And yeah, certainly just food for thought why one half of the continent would have evolved that visual marker and the other half don't really rely on it to have it. Can be the different habitat types, etc., but certainly an interesting thought. Here you'd like to know, do waterbucks often stand or lie in water for hours during the day? Probably more standing, but their association with water comes more down to their feeding habits and their strong swimming ability. So by being such good swimmers and quite adept in aquatic environments, it allows them to utilize a niche by feeding on aquatic plants or grasses that grow in aquatic areas. But at the same time, they're very much at home on solid ground or terra firma. I wouldn't say you necessarily really see them lying around in the water, etc. Of course, there is still the danger of crocodiles, so lying down makes you quite an easy target for a crocodile to sneak up on. And when we generally see them in water, it's quite shallow water, not too deep, but yeah, that's where you generally see them. But I would say it's more normal to associate them with water than it is necessarily that they spend an incredible amount of time physically in the water. Benji, you'd like to know, wouldn't the follow me signs be follow me signs for predators too? I think not too much. I don't think a predator would necessarily rely on seeing that white rump to follow them or catch them. I mean, predators rely heavily on scent quite a bit. Hearing is also good, but of course scent is what leads them or gives away the presence of prey. And I think by the time a predator is close enough to see that white rump, the waterbuck is in a great deal of trouble. Whereas for the members of the herd that would see it, they would be moving together and in close proximity to keep an eye out for that flash of white or to notice that through thick vegetation. But yeah, if a predator's that close, it certainly may use it, but I think by then it is almost on top of the waterbuck. Oh, quite a wonderful setting here today at Tal. It looks quite vibrant, but we'll be coming back a bit later. We're going to head over to Botswana a bit. This is quite pretty here in Cylinder. We've got some lechwe. This is of course the red lechwe. Quite similar to waterbuck in their behavior. I would say, if anything, they are even more aquatic or amphibious than waterbuck are. You will not find lechwe far from a marsh, swamp or wetland. They almost live exclusively in those environments. Incredibly good swimmers as well. I'm very sure my eyes just caught a glimpse of an interesting bird at the back of that lechwe ram. Oh yes, it's that black egret. So called a black heron or black egret, whichever name you prefer. They did change the names a bit, but it is the bird that opens his wings to create a shadow under which the fish rush in to get refuge from the sun, etc., or hide in the shade, and he catches them like that. It's also said to take off the glare from the water surface, and he can easily pick up fish. I'm sure people are maybe familiar with the internet videos with the nighttime, daytime bird. This is your culprit here. It's quite cool to see him working in amongst these lechwe. Obviously he's maybe relying on them to disturb any aquatic invertebrates, fish or amphibians. You can make a quick meal of. Certainly a 2-for-1 special. also quite pretty about these lechwe's, they've got these black markings on the front, on their front legs. Really contrast with the rest of their coat and coloration. But yeah, very interesting animals. This male's still quite small, their horns can get a fair bit bigger, but very impressive animals. I think this is, if you ever wanted to cross an impala and a waterbuck, this is probably what you would get. Oh, there alongside our black heron we have a jacana also walking around. I think it's safe to assume there's a fair bit of water, and this is what I was speaking about with the waterbuck. They're not necessarily in deep water, but they are in water continuously feeding on this aquatic vegetation, but in shallower regions. It's very entertaining watching the black heron flip his wings out like that to create that shade. I really do enjoy it. It's probably one of my favorite birds. Leora, you're asking if lechwe often stand on their hind legs to reach higher vegetation. Not that I'm aware of, no. They are predominantly grazers. We see them grazing in areas where it's predominantly grasses, aquatic vegetation, etc. So that behavior of standing on hind legs would probably be more animals that are browsers. So I mean, sometimes goats will do it, we see them doing it, but yeah, no, you won't see that with lechwe. That being said, I've also yet to see a kudu do it, but kudu are incredibly tall to begin with, so probably not why you see it, or why you don't see it. There's quite a diversity of birds there. I also saw an egret sneaking in for a second. That was quite a nice session. We're going to head over to Tortillas Camp in Kenya. It's nice to spend some time with these lechwe. Quite a large troop of baboons here today. Often see them foraging quite happily in the aquatic vegetation, so maybe trying to dig up tubers from water lilies, or just having a good old drink. But oh, they do spend a fair chunk of time eating the softer aquatic vegetation growing on the fringes here. Wendy, nice to have you on the show. Can imagine, I know the western and eastern Cape of South Africa direly need some rain, so holding fingers for big downpours. Certainly I think we could send some of the rain we had in the Lowveld down that way. Amy loves leopards. You'd like to know where are lechwe predominantly found? So in southern Africa, the only places we find them is in the Okavango Delta or in the Caprivi Strip in Namibia, which for all intensive purposes is essentially one large habitat. We just have two different names for it as humans. Then up in Zambia, so there is a number of lechwe species. There's red lechwe, I think there's black lechwe, and there's a third one I can't remember right now, having never seen it myself. But in the Kafue swamps and other swamps in Zambia, lechwe are found, and this continues up into Central Africa and all the swampy environments. The Sud in Sudan also will have lechwe. Trying to think where else, but yeah, it's from Southern Africa, it's from the Delta northwards, and all your swampy, marshy habitats. There will be large herds of lechwe. Javier, you'd like to know if baboons use their long arms to scoop up water to drink. No, as you can see, they drink straight from the water. This female there is bending down and drinking water like that. So they are, I'm sure if they wanted to, they could maybe try scoop a bit of water into their hands, but it's much more efficient for them to just sip the water straight up from the water's edge or surface.
Wild Earth Travel has a green season special just for South Africans. Explore Botswana's Okavango, a remarkable mosaic of delta and savanna teeming with wildlife. Stay in elegant, luxurious tented camps deeply connected to the wilderness. Discover the Okavango on exciting game drives and tranquil boat journeys. Share stories beneath the stars, remembering what it means to safari through Africa's wild south. Wild Earth Travel. We're waiting for your call.
Would you like to know what an elephant's favorite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. Over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature.
Look at this.
Wow, that's amazing, everybody!
We'll see you there.
Oh, have a look at this.
Wow, wow, wow.
I don't know where to look. This is too astounding for words.
Unreal.
This is what they call a shambe, a family, a whole herd of elephants.
Nature is just everything.
We will be extending the show by a few minutes.
A fascinating animal that kind of draws people to it.
We'll see you out on the safari.
Deep end. I wouldn't say it's normal. I think it relates quite a lot to their knowledge of whether the water is safe that they're at. If they know there's a danger of crocodiles, etc., they will be very careful. But it's as if when they know it is safe, they are a lot more brave and daring to forage. Certainly jealous of these baboons. It's a nice way to spend a Sunday. Just at the water's edge, not like being at the beach, taking it very laid back and relaxing. Well, we're going to leave our mischievous baboons to carry on with their Sunday. We're going to head over to Tembe for a bit. Oh, surprise, surprise, elephants at Tembe Elephant Park. So there's an elephant pool party here. It looks like there's been some good rains. I don't know, the pan looks quite a bit fuller to me. I don't know if I'm just noticing the back section a bit more, but it does look quite full. But once again, quite a few magnificent bulls all over the show. Some very big tusked individuals here. Such a beautiful setting, of course, as well. Amy, yeah, that is correct. Those were olive baboons, specifically because they're in Kenya. One of the most widespread baboon species in East Africa, and then Chacma baboons are found further south, mainly in southern Africa. But I think as far as behavior goes, it's part and parcel. They both act and behave extremely similarly. There is quite a difference in appearance. So I think for me the olive baboon looks a lot neater than the shaggy Chacma baboon. Zane, you'd like to know if elephants spend more time at water during the dry season than the wet season. So that is very true. They generally spend more time at water during the dry season. We often see them traveling great distances to get to water. It becomes an incredibly important resource for them in the dry season. The surface water is scarce and vegetation is dry. They need to drink more often because they're not getting a lot of moisture, there's the word moisture, out of their food. And you'll see them go to great lengths. You'll see them dig in dry riverbeds to get to water if it means they maybe don't have to travel as far, because good quality food becomes depleted quite quickly around waterholes, so they often need to travel quite far. And then whereas in the wet season the water is everywhere, the plants are growing and in a good condition, they contain more moisture, so they can spread out and drink a bit more less frequently, and they don't have to travel so far to get to water when they do want to drink. So essentially you could say the dry season pulls elephants towards water and the wet season lets them roam a bit more. You can see it quite dramatically how a waterhole's vegetation tends to really heal during the wet season when there's not so much pressure with them associating in one specific area. Theo, you'd like to know, why do elephant herds usually enter water in a coordinated single file line? So generally you can split the two movements. When an elephant herd is feeding or quite relaxed, they tend to spread out a bit, but when they're traveling to get somewhere, that's generally when you see that single file coordination. They're generally also on an elephant path, so they're taking the path of least resistance, and that's why they'll all follow on that line, etc. But you can also just see that change in behavior. When an elephant wants to get to water, they move with a lot of purpose and speed and follow one another on the easiest path, whereas when you see them feeding, they're quite spread out, they move quite a bit more slowly, not too worried about where exactly they're going. Well, we're gonna leave Tembe for a bit. It's always been fantastic again, and head on over to Botswana for a bit. We've got a hippo that's come out here at Celinda, also making like the lechwes do and feeding on this nutritious aquatic vegetation. Also getting a bit of a bonus if you can feed during the day. It doesn't have to do it can feed during the day and at night. It's some bonus nourishment intake. You can see quite a few egrets also throughout this flooded grassland here. Very pretty as always. Eagle lover, you were mentioning how you noticed that some waterholes are frequently only visited by bull elephant herds. So of course it's hard to give a concrete answer with the locations of all the cameras, etc. But it has a lot to do with the home ranges of the elephants in an area where the waterhole may be. For example, in northern parts of the Kruger National Park, there are much more bull elephants in those regions compared to cows necessarily living there. So you generally see bulls most of the time. And it's something I've also noticed at Aldonio. We tend to often see elephant bulls. So it says to you there's not necessarily many cows or any cows with that waterhole that is part of the home range. Whatever that reason may be, it may be food, other water supplies, etc. Cows also don't want to spend all their time around bulls. It's generally bulls that go looking for females. Cows are quite happy to be doing their own thing, and obviously adult male bull elephants can be a danger to the young when they're trying to breed or mingle into the herd. Vida, you'd like to know if hippos return to the same grazing lawns repeatedly, creating short cropped patches. So they do. I think you generally see it a lot more close to the water's edge, where there's a large accumulation of hippos in one area and they start feeding from there and branching out. So obviously that little area becomes quite a manicured lawn in a way. But they are creatures of habitat. They tend to return to the same grazing areas night after night. I mean, if you find a good spot with good nutritious grass, you're not going to change for nothing. But yeah, in a way, creating these hippo lawns. And but yeah, you generally tend to see these quite close to the water's edge, and they're also very habitual. I mean, hippos tend to follow the same paths. We see these paths that lead out of the water, and these paths are generally very well worn and used. And yeah, I think also on top of that though, the grass you get near the water's edge will be quite a different species to what they find deeper inland when they're grazing. So the different grasses will also react quite differently to the grazing pressure on it. It's what they refer to. Certain grasses are increases or decreases, so the more they're grazed on, the better it actually is for the grass. It becomes more nutritious for the animals and it grows better. And whereas if you get a grass species that's a decreaser with too much grazing pressure, it actually starts to disappear, and if it's overgrazed it can actually go locally extinct in that little patch. But yeah, quite intricate. Anyway, I'm going to leave our grazing hippo and head on over back to Tau. Quite a beautiful setting. It's very majestic with that large elephant there in the middle of the water. Plenty of wildebeest, some impala. Could almost say it's like the Serengeti has come to South Africa near Tau. Nice to see a large herd of wildebeest on the plains here. Of course, I think this herd is generally in the area. They do prefer open habitat. It's a bit safer from predators. And good grazing, of course. We're in for quite a nice treat here. We've got this breeding herd wading in to get to some of the water. So a bit of a mud bath at the same time. Nice to have them so close by. Also stunning to see all these wildebeest. There must be about 50 to 100 animals around here. A very stunning sight, of course. Leora, you were asking, and I imagine this relates to the hippos, if dominant males sometimes graze closer to the water while subordinates go further. I think it's a catch-22. I think early on in the season it's quite interesting, the territorial boundaries, etc., that hippos have in water seems to dissipate quite a bit outside of the water, because they don't graze as a herd. Females go in different directions and they all tend to do their own things, and it doesn't appear like they have territorial boundaries as much on land. Of course they do mark their territory and demarcate it in and around their spot, but yeah, it's quite interesting. But yeah, like I was saying, it goes both ways. The further you go, the grazing tends to be very good, but then you have to travel quite far, so there is benefit as well as risk. And the same, by staying close to the water, the grazing quality can be poorer at times, especially later in the season. Tara, you're asking if elephants return to the same mud wallows for generations. They will. Of course, they've got quite a few spots that they know of, but that is the job of a matriarch or a pathfinder, essentially, to have knowledge of all these spots that not only contain water but mud at certain times of the year, and which spots tend to be the most reliable for water and mud, which ones dry up at certain times in the year, or it's an incredibly dry year, which would be the most stable one to pick. So they will definitely spend quite a bit of time generationally. And of course revisit these spots continually throughout their lives, especially when it comes to breeding herds. They will tend to stick to one specific area a bit more. It's the bulls that tend to be wanderers throughout their lifetimes. It was nice coming back to Taal for a bit. We're going to head over to Lentor now to see some antics that side. Well, plenty of baboon business. I didn't want to say monkey business, that's a bit cliche. But lots of baboon business going on at the waterholes today. I think this is our third baboon sighting for the session. And quite predictably, they've been at Lentor quite a bit every time I've done a show. Today they're looking a bit more calmer than usual. Normally they're quite busy causing chaos or running all over the show. Of course, my other favorite reason for always coming to Lentor, lots of little birds to watch. Firefinches are looking striking as always, all lined up for their midday drink. Looks like quite a few Jamison's firefinches from what I can see. Also a cutthroat finch that's come through. And some grey-headed sparrows. While we're on the topic, I'm not sure if anyone has seen the Birding Life Awards that are taking place in South Africa, but Wild Earth has been nominated for one of the YouTube channels of the year, and I think it speaks highly of all the birding that does take place, whether it be on game drives or live at the waterhole. So if anyone gets a chance, please head over to the Birding Life and vote for Wild Earth. It's currently second place. It did take the lead briefly. But yeah, every vote counts, and there's up until the 20th of February to vote. And these baboons are looking very happy today. Not too much activity taking place. I think everyone's in the midday siesta mode. Theo, you had a question asking if troops split into smaller foraging parties and then fuse back together daily. To my experience, no, not really. I think you'll see a larger group maybe spread out over quite a large area, and it comes across that they've maybe split off a bit or they'll fuse up later. But I've got a bit of a close-up there, someone investigating the camera. But generally at the first sign of danger or commotion, it's as if they all come running back together or clumping together quite closely. Obviously they all feel safer together, and at the same time, if someone's seen something that they haven't, the best reaction is to head towards the rest of the troop or get somewhere as far away as possible, because maybe the danger is close and you just haven't seen it. But yeah, in my experience, it's as if when they're foraging, they definitely spread out over quite a large area, but I don't think the group is ever truly split in two. And if it does happen, maybe not for very long. Because I often feel like if you watch a baboon herd towards a troop, not a herd, towards the end of the day or throughout the course of the day, it's almost a parade or conveyor of baboons moving through as they do their thing. Some are feeding or drinking, etc. But it is a continuous activity until they've all moved off. Well, I'm going to leave these mischievous fellows for a bit and head on over to Cat Eye Pan. Oh, quite a few pretty impala here. I was having a bit of a giggle. If you say Cat Eye Pan quite fast, it can maybe be a bit of a tongue twister. But wow, the bush is really looking stunning here. Of course, this is in the Greater Kruger, so everything is just alive at the moment. I have a Kruger trip actually coming up in a week or two, so I am itching with excitement to go visit the Kruger now that parts have reopened after the floods. Wouldn't say I'm necessarily excited to see the damage, but certainly it's awe-inspiring to see the power of nature. but I think I'm just looking forward to being in the Kruger and seeing a lot of animals and birds.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh! Woo! This is action-packed.
Would you like to know at what age a buffalo calf gets its horns? These are questions that you can ask me in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
Look at this.
Wow, that's amazing, everybody.
We'll see you there.
Oh, have a look at this.
Wow, wow, wow.
I don't know where to look. This is too astounding for words.
Unreal.
This is what they call a shambe, a family, a whole herd of elephants.
Nature is just everything.
We will be extending the show by a few minutes.
A fascinating animal that kind of draws people to it.
We'll see you out on the safari.
So strict that it's the female or the male necessarily leading them. I think it's quite a follow me association or sheep mentality in a way. The male generally does tend to be at the back, but sometimes he's in front, and I think when they're all moving in a general direction they all tend to follow each other as they move in. Of course impala really don't live very far from a water source. It's an older bush tale for survival. If you are stranded in the bush and you come across impala, you are probably in roughly about a 2-kilometer radius from water. Impala always associate near some form of drinking source within that range. So once again, it's not necessarily leading, they always very closely associated with water, but they'll all at some point start moving together. Well, most of the action is now moved north here. We're going to head over to Zimbabwe for a bit. Oh, stunning. Always nice to see these crowned cranes here at Wangi Safari Lodge. They are such beautiful birds. They almost look out of place in the harsh African bush. I feel like they belong somewhere else, or they are very pristine and pretty. You just don't associate them deep in the rough and tough savannah. Probably one of my other favorite birds, but I think it's just because they look very regal. It's actually one of the cranes I haven't seen myself a lot in the wild. I've seen a lot of the other crane species in southern Africa, but not too often the crown crane. Aggie, I do agree with you. I think there appears to be quite a few tongue twisters on the cards today. But especially when it comes to birds, it's very rare that its name is merely one word. It's generally a collection. A lot of birders refer to short text for quickly saying their name. So to save time, if you were speaking of a grey-crowned crane, it would be a GCC, just to save you a bit of time. But also on some of the listing apps, they'll use that text to quickly find birds if you're listing them, such as eBird or Birdlasser or Bindu. Maura, you'd like to know what role do the red gular pouches play in vocalization and display? So of course that bright red color itself is quite a visual indicator. So you would, obviously it helps with sound, but also visual display. So when the crane crawls, that pouch inflates and acts a bit like a resonating chamber. It helps to amplify and deepen the sound, so it carries bit further across the wetlands and grasslands that they call home. But yeah, visually it's just as important. Obviously during courtship or territorial displays, that pouch also becomes quite obvious and adds to the drama of their dances and calls. So, especially with that crown that they have, so they'll rely on that whole package to display quite a bit. Anyway, I'm going to leave our peaceful cranes to carry on their preening. Oof, my tongue is very tired today. And we're going to head over to Aldonio. Back at the zoo, of course, zebra, giraffe and elephants galore for us to look at. Some very large ivory bulls as well, looking magnificent as they normally do. Quite big specimens. Michael, you were asking if an elephant could kill an animal with a swipe of its trunk. I think most certainly so. I don't think it's something you'll see too often. But yeah, those trunks are incredibly powerful. And if you think how much they weigh and it swiped you at full force, could really do some damage. I think more so to smaller animals, but of course a swipe of a trunk would send a human being flying and would probably break a few bones, etc. But I think if they wanted to really do some damage, their tusks would be the means of delivering the fatal blow. What they also will do is if they, well, people that have been attacked by elephants, normally they crush you beneath their forehead. Hannah, you're saying it's amazing how the elephants and other animals haven't widened this waterhole at all. I think, of course, the main reason for that, look, I have not been to Aldornia myself, but the main reason for that is it's a man-made waterhole. It's reinforced with cement, etc. So there's control over when the water's pumping and how full it gets, etc. Also, it's also relatively deep, so, and the lip of it is quite sufficient, so if they were to try spread it or erode it on the sides, it's not going to spread the water hole. That's the main reason. Alright, well, we're going to leave our bathing elephants to finish off here, and we're going to head over to Botswana. Quite a beautiful scene here again at the basin. Bit more of a fuller overview. Really helps one understand the wetland scene that we've been seeing earlier. These hippos are definitely in heaven. But this part of the world truly is very unique. The whole Okavango Basin, it's such a beautiful place to visit. I think it's very hard to explain it to anyone who hasn't been there, but truly just a wildlife haven with all this water and waterways and swamps. It's really stunning. I haven't been for a couple of years, but truly a paradise. Hippos play quite an important role, and oh look, there's a little baby. Shame, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. Didn't even see it for a second. I thought Mom was gonna roll over it, but she's just trying to find a comfy spot to lie. Brenda, you're quite spot on. It is essentially what they do. Hippos are incredibly important architects of the Okavango, elephants as well, but hippos will move into these thick reeds or aquatic plants and make spots for themselves, and that's what helps keep the flow of the delta going. They create channels for fish and other animals. But yeah, because essentially this little spot would be just a clump of reeds, etc. Now, by spending time in it, they've loosened it up and made a bit more of open water. So it's amazing the role that they play in the delta. Incredibly important animals. Everything about nature is just always so interconnected, and I always love the intricacies that reveal themselves over time. Well, I'm going to leave our lazy hippos now. They seem very content. I'm going to head over to Tortillas again. Well, that's quite a pretty scene here at Tortillas. And of course the baboons are still here, but wonderful to see these giraffes coming for a drink. Really towering over the scene. Plenty of blacksmith lapwings as well. But I remember from previously there is quite a large flock that lives here. Must say also quite a stark contrast with the green aquatic vegetation compared to the dry savanna in the background. The change of the season is well underway. Yes, I do agree, it's a very beautiful scene. It conjures up those typical postcard type pictures of safaris in Kenya. A giraffe towering over the savannah. The very uniquely shaped acacia trees, or Vulchelia trees as they're now known. But just a stunning view to take in and enjoy. Well, we're going to leave our peaceful giraffe. That one seems to be trying to lick and itch on its neck. Looks quite tough. But anyway, we're going to go visit Tower a bit, see what's going on there. Oh, there we go, some more illies. Definitely making the most of the mud on this hot day. See how properly coated they are. Looks like there's a lone bull coming in from the back there. It almost looks like a grey ghost. Oh, there's actually two. There's another one to the left. But yeah, certainly looking quite dry. I'm sure they're in the mood for a mud bath and some water. And beat some of the heat that they are experiencing. quite interesting to watch how these elephants slowly move through the landscape as they get ever so slightly closer to the waterhole. But quite a good example. You can see where the other bull's gone, but the one I did see at first is approaching with quite a bit of determination. I'm sure he's quite keen to get here. But there's a lot of elephants in every direction. And this bull right in front of the camera has got long tusks, but we can see really thick developed tusks. Tends to be a bit more typical of the Madikwe elephants. Oh, there's our other elephant. I'm taking a bit of a different path to get here, but approaching with determination.
Did you know that 90% of Madagascar's wildlife exists nowhere else on Earth? The Indri's haunting howl echoes through misty rainforest, a sound we will never forget. Travel east where lemurs soar through emerald canopies and coral reefs shimmer beneath turquoise seas. This isn't just a journey. It's a once-in-a-lifetime wildlife adventure I'd like to take you on. Join me, James Hendry, on this exclusive island safari.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. I grew up mostly in the Lowveld. I grew up here pretty much on the southern side of Kruger National Park, a place called Marlow Park, for most of my years. Something surprising about myself, I did play drums in a band for many years. Best sighting I presented, we found Palumba and the two cubs, and the cubs are just way big.
Wow, that's amazing, everybody.
We'll see you there.
Oh, have a look at this.
Wow, wow, wow.
I don't know where to look. It's too astounding for words.
Unreal. This is what they call a shambi, a family, a whole herd of elephants.
Nature is just everything.
We will be extending the show by a few minutes.
A fascinating animal that kind of draws people to it.
We'll see you out on the safari.
These cows at all not too interested. Young wildebeest chasing each other all over the show. My life is swell. Quite a nice comment that came in from Moonlight at Midnight, saying how you enjoy the 2 hours of live at the waterhole. Apart from all the different animals we see, it's also the locations. They're same but different. I do agree, and I think if you're enjoying that, you understand the beauty of the bush. There's lots of things that are similar, but there's so many slight variations and differences to appreciate in the African bush. And if that bug has bitten you, then you are through and through a safari or nature addict. It's quite funny watching these little wildebeest chase and gallop around. I'm having quite a bit of fun today, clowning around. And you see that one elephant calf has resorted to lying down completely. It seems like some of the cows are just resting or standing up, but one or two of them have decided to completely lie down. I see this big bull is now approaching. It'll be interesting to see what reactions take place now. The cows look quite calm, but I do see a cow in the middle raising her head ever so slightly. Well, he's getting straight to business, introducing himself to the ladies, but nothing too malicious. It's funny, they took quite a detour to come back this way. It's interesting. So a bit of a rough housing between that larger bull and what looks like a smaller bull. Quite a big, well, both of those bulls that came in are quite large. But everyone seems to be quite calm and at peace with one another. It seems like this fellow's maybe upsetting some of the cows ever so slightly. See, there was a question that came in if elephants coordinate group mud bathing to cover each other's backs. No, they don't. So, I mean, they'll all do their own thing and you cover your own back, but there might be a bit of splashing that takes place, but yeah, everyone's responsible for slinging their own mud and dust around. Anyway, we're going to leave these Ellies a bit and head on over to the Masai Mara. Oh, that's quite a pretty scene. I have a very mature eland bull browsing away. It almost looks like he's grazing, but he's clearly eating a small shrub here. Certainly a very stunning individual in his prime. You can see him bristling with muscle and his very well developed dewlap and tuft of hair at the front there. Very fine specimen. I wonder what bush he's eating, but we can see he's feeding on some shoots that have, well, a lot of these trees seem to be evidence of elephant feeding or heavy browsing, maybe not just elephants, but obviously feeding on those small nutritious shoots that are coming out. Oof, quite a beautiful bull. Very much in his prime, I would say. can see him browsing on his next bush now. Nothing like a Sunday lunch at the local salad bar. All you can eat, that's for sure. Obviously it takes quite a bit of nourishment to maintain that body. So he's got to make hay while the sun shines. Certainly a lean green eating machine, hard at work here. He is just ploughing through some of that shrubbery. Quite a nice side-on shot, really. Paints a picture of his large stature. Crazy to think how quick these antelope can also move, even though they are incredible. Well, this is Africa's largest antelope, but crazy to think they can move incredibly quickly and jump very high. It's reported that they can jump to a height of about 2 meters. Plenty of examples in southern Africa in the game farming industry where adult eland are able to clear perimeter fences. That was quite an interesting reaction. Okay, no, that makes sense. Anyway, here we are back at Tau. I did get excited for a second. I thought maybe there would be a lion that was about to announce its presence to us, but not that lucky today. At least we've got plenty of ellie action and wildebeest tomfoolery taking place at Tau today. Certainly keeps one busy. I must say the elephants are really churning up the waterhole. Normally it seems a bit more calm, but quite a few of them have waded in today to get the most out of the mud. But of course also as it goes into the dry season, the pressure on this water source will start to increase. So the grass will take a bit of a beating, and it will get muddier and muddier as the water also starts to dry up ever so slightly. And Leo, you had a question about the eland, asking if they sweat like horses to cool down in the hot sun. So no, eland don't sweat like most antelope. They actually sweat very little. They tend to keep cool by panting or resting during the hottest parts of the day. Normally why you'll see your antelope resting up in the shade during the very hot middle part of the day. And this way they allow their body temperature to be managed a bit more stably. Quite a simple mechanism, but yeah. Alright, well, we're going to leave our elephants and zebras and wildebeest again and head over to Tembe. There we go, there's a pretty Nyala that's come down for a drink here at the pan. There's a question from Suri. You were asking if calves tend to play more vigorously and roll longer in the mud than adults. It certainly does seem like that off the bat. Often you'll see the calves really rolling and getting into the mud. I think it's simply because it's a bit easier for them to do that. I think when you're a big mature animal, it takes a bit more effort and stability to roll in the mud like that, and it can be a bit difficult to get up. Also, you often see in water bodies, often deep in the wet season, most elephants will take a bit of a swim, but yeah, as the water starts to get shallower and shallower, the calves are probably the only ones that can really have a bit of a swim. Nice to see our little warthog friend eating away here. We're really making the most of that nutritious grass growing at the water's edge. I think these warthogs live in a precarious area. There are plenty of lions around the waterhole here, Tembe Elephant Park, but of course it's much safer being in the open than it is in the thicker sand forest surrounding the waterhole. Anyway, we're going to leave our porcine friend here and head over to Lentor for a bit. Ooh, this is very cool. I think this is a first for me. I have not seen elephants coming to drink at Lentor. This is not a usual occurrence, and definitely a first for me. Two very large specimens. Of course, the one on the left is sporting very impressive ivory, and his companion seems to have broken his, but still two very big old elephant bulls. I'm sure they could tell us a few stories. And these fellows have definitely had quite a few adventures in their time. I think it would be safe to assume the vegetation is quite thick in this Lentor or near Lentor Lodge. It's probably why the ears are quite tattered and torn up. Quite thick and spiky vegetation probably would have caused that over the years. Such impressive animals. Actually very excited to see them. It's so cool having them here at Lentor. I see a bit of information trickling through. The elephant bull on the right being called MZ. That's nice to know. He's quite a well-known fellow. It's quite nice for me to meet him or see him for the first time. Yes, but these are two big bulls. It's very pretty. Just also a bit of an apology for the elephants being out of focus. It seems like the lens is a bit dirty. I think it has a bit to do with the baboons that were having close-up shots earlier. It's looking a bit clearer now. You can see MZ's tattered ears quite clearly now. It's quite interesting. I've never really seen an elephant with such tattered ears. Very pretty, these two bulls. I think I would hands down maybe call this my highlight for today. It's just so cool to see them at a waterhole that generally doesn't have elephants coming past it too often. You can certainly see these two fellows are quite thirsty and hot, splashing lots of water on themselves. Also making a bit of mud with the soil on the edge of the waterhole. It always amazes me how resourceful elephants can be with the resources in and around or around them. Some more information coming through from the zoomies, but the rangers in the area say MZ is around about 50 years old from their guesstimates, but yeah, we can see he is definitely a well-aged big bull who's definitely lived quite a life. I think we could essentially say he's a retired grandpa now. He's probably fathered many elephant calves. So now it's about having the retired life around the Lentor Lodge. think his broken tusks are, if that's anything to go by, he's also a bit of a fighter. So I think he's had a good couple of fights in his time. Aggie, it's funny that you say that. I also had the same feeling with this angle. It really does feel like you're right there in person. I was actually wondering what it would feel like to be at the hide that's next to this waterhole. I think it must be quite an awesome experience. But I must say, being at a hide of the waterhole when the elephant comes to drink is always very exciting. And you can see he's having a good head scratch with this thorn tree, and getting to that itchy spot behind the ear there. And Wendy was mentioning, you can see how long the tails are. It's quite actually interesting that you mentioned that, Wendy. I've noticed in some elephants and Kruger, etc., or I don't know, just some environments, but they tend to have very little hair sometimes on their tails, and I'm not sure necessarily what's the result of that. But yeah, these two fellows have got very hairy tails, and it's quite long hair at that. You see the guy at the back's also scratching his leg a bit. Animal lover, you'd like to know if he sat down, do I think he would be able to get up? I think so. He's definitely in still good condition. He's definitely an old fella, but he's by no means sickly or frail. I mean, even mature bulls will lie down to sleep. But, he's still got a good couple of years ahead of him. He's in good condition. See, he's having a good old bum scratch against the tree there. I must say, if you had to compare the two, MZ has got a lot less tail hair than his companion does. The guy's really got a lot of tail on a lot of hair on the back of his tail. It's kind of like a mullet, I guess. And off they go, the two amigos. Oh, that was a wonderful experience. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. It actually looks like they might just go rest in the shade a bit. Well, since these two are on their way out, I think we're going to pop over to Aldonio and see what's going on there. Yep, still lots of action here at Aldonio. Animals in every direction. Fantastic. So this feels like one of the few times where everyone's quite happy to share the waterhole. Normally it's quite a bit of apprehension for the giraffes or the zebras to drink while the elephants are drinking, but everyone seems quite content to share the water today. You can see the pump is definitely working on overtime. The water level is quite low with all the thirsty animals that have come past for a drink today. I must say this younger giraffe's quite brave, but he's moved off now, got a bit of a fright. The zebra also got a bit of a fright. But he seems to be quite curious. He should be a bit more cautious so close to the elephants. They can get a bit cheeky at times, but of course young animals are always a bit braver than they should be. Anyway, I'm going to head over to Towel, a bit more action on that side. It seems like these two waterbuck are having a bit of a staring contest. It looks like his opponent is looking the other way. Can see the one bull is urinating, so he is could argue that he's marking his territory ever so slightly, or just spreading his scent a bit. Of course, between these two waterbuck, the male on the right is much larger, so it wouldn't be much of a fight. Maybe a bit more of a play fight. And there we go. The contest continues, bit of horn locking taking place. But I would definitely say this is for practice, it's not the real deal. Unless of course this youngster's been a bit aggressive towards this male and he's just putting him in his place. But not much of a contest between these two. It's like a lightweight MMA fighter trying to take on a heavyweight MMA fighter. It's not going to end well.
amazing, everybody.
We'll see you there.
Have a look at this.
Wow, wow, wow.
I don't know where to look. It's too astounding for words.
Unreal. This is what they call a shambi, a family, a whole herd of elephants.
Nature is just everything.
We will be extending the show by a few minutes.
A fascinating animal that kind of draws people to it.
We'll see you out on the safari.
Oh, there comes quite a big waterbuck bull out of the water now. Looks like a shell duck there as well. A couple of moorhens, I think some coots possibly. But the water birding is always very good at Tau. I think these birds live here almost full time. It also looks like some spoon bulls at the back. And we've got this young elephant terrorizing the waterbuck and the zebra, chasing everyone around because he can be a bit of a bully. Even got some white-faced or whistling ducks popping out there. Bryce, you'd like to know the difference between a shell duck and a normal duck. I think it's got more to do with size and maybe the calls. Yeah, I think it's quite intricate, and I think it goes down a bit more to taxonomic differences. For example, the Egyptian goose, even though it's called a goose, is actually a type of shell duck if you go down in taxonomic classifications. I'm not specifically sure what's the unique difference. I think it would probably have more to do with size and breeding habits than anything else. Quite a wonderful spot to end off the show. We're reaching the end, but very peaceful and pretty with all the action going on. Just a reminder to everyone, please remember to vote if you haven't voted for Wild Earth for the Birding Life Awards. I think it would be very cool if Wild Earth could win the category it's in. Certainly, I think many of us have learned quite a bit about birding through Wild Earth, as much as we have about other African wildlife. So I quickly picked up my bird guide. Essentially, a shell duck is the middle point between a goose and a duck. And they tend to spend a bit more time on land, grazing on grass, etc., whereas your ducks are more focused on water lifestyle. So that is the easier and quicker answer there. But once again, thanks everyone for a wonderful show today. I think the star moment was MZ and his other large-tusked friend at Lentor. I enjoyed that heavily. Hope everyone has a great week ahead. Enjoy the afternoon drive today. I look forward to seeing you all next time.